Hey everyone, welcome to my channel or LinkedIn profile, wherever you're watching this video. Now, I wanted to make a very quick video on how Python can be so useful for our day-to-day DevOps jobs. And this is very quick, simple, and easy to grab session. So I want your full attention. So keep watching. Now, okay, now let me quickly go to the session. Okay, so the first thing we'll be talking about why Python for DevOps. Okay, and that's actually quite simple because there are 10 points that I want to mention here. Let me just quickly. Just a moment, I think. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So first point is the readability. Okay. Now, of course, Python is very easy to learn, and the syntax is also very easy to read. That is one reason why it's enable other engineers and other maybe DevOps engineer or maybe other engineers want to review, check codes, want to check how can we improve the performance and all that. We can do that easily. Okay, and of course, by all doing this reviews and all that, we're reducing the errors. Right now, let me do one thing that enable the discussion. Just a moment. I just noticed I didn't enable the. Okay, but it should be visible now. Yeah. So first point is readability. Second point is the versatility. Now, what is this versatility I'm talking about? So Python can handle various DevOps tasks from infrastructure, automation to testing, and we'll see how it can help us. We'll go through all that point. Now, it will be helping for sure. Now, libraries. Python has extensive libraries and framework that support DevOps process. So we'll go through our session. We'll go through each and every, not each and every, but at least the famous one. What can be helpful for you? Okay. Then cross-platform. Python is platform independent. It's just ultimately a tool. So wherever you need to run Python, you just need to install the Python binary, and it's supported in all major Linux instances. I mean, not Linux distribution, and of course Windows and Mac. Right. So it's about most of the OS. Then is that community support. Now Python Python has a large active community that contributes to its growth and knowledge. I mean, of course, if you see, there may be fewer normal libraries or packages, but there are huge community packages which helping us for whatever we need. Okay, and developer like you and me, who maybe we get experience, or maybe just freshers who just got out the have some interest for open source, they freely develop all these packages. Okay, now then is the integration. Now Python easily integrates with existing tools and services in ecosystem. If you see, you talk about any tool. Okay, any tool, be it container, be it your infrastructure code, be it your monitoring, you name it, and you will have a tool using Python for that. Okay. Then there is a cloud compatibility. Now Python works seamlessly with the major cloud providers, simplifying the cloud management. Now, if you think about, of course, every cloud have their own tool, but every cloud have SDKs. Okay, and that SDK is actually available for all the you can say everyone. Okay, and most cases, I mean, if you see any cloud supporting mainly 3 languages, and Python is one of them. What are the other languages? Of course, JavaScript and these days Go or Java. Okay, these are the 2 optional, but at least Python and JavaScript, they support 100% sure. Okay, then is the automation. Now Python excel at scripting and automation, making it a good fit for DevOps. So anything, suppose you want to automate, so what happens, one not just one, many ask actually that we have this shell scripting, right? Then why does we need this Python? Now think about a situation. If you have so many things, okay, so you have 10 data sources, 5 or even 3 data sources you're collecting data from. Then you are collecting data, you're processing data, and maybe data could be in JSON, could be in, for example, SOAP protocol, could be anything. Okay, and then multiple data you have. Then you have to process the data. Then you have to save the data in different DBs. It, even though it may sound simple to many, but in real life is actually so complicated. Okay, and you'll be pulling your hair if I ask you and in front and just solve this one or give this. If you just if someone force using shell script, it will be very very extreme hard job, to be honest. Now that part is actually more simple in any high level programming language. Of course, Python is a high level programming language, which is mean that you already have libraries, you already have the high level interfaces. You can just use the APIs, okay, and call them and simply save the data or process something. So you have that luxury here. Okay, in shell scripting, of course, it's basic from zero, so you have to start everything from scratch. Maybe you will have CLI tools, but that also have so many complexities to manage. Okay. Now, if I ask you another thing, now this automation, but this adaptability. Now, Python flexibility allow for custom tooling tailored for specific DevOps. So that's what I'm actually speaking about. This libraries, this cross-platform support, this integrations, all this coming to this adaptability. So since it supports most of the platform, it's easily adaptable, right? Now we just talked about all this, right? Now why not we see through what are the actual Python tools that could be useful for us, right? So let's start with our infrastructure automation, because this is the one of the most I will say used sector using Python. And the tools that I'm going to talk about, most probably you could have already used it as a DevOps or cloud engineer, but if you have not, maybe this time you should be sure to start that. Now what is that? Now before going through all that, let's just go through a bit of definition. But now Python can be this is infrastructure automation using Python. Okay, now Python can be used to automate tasks related to setting up and managing infrastructure, including provisioning resources, managing configuration file, and orchestrating service. Now what this means, okay, let's, instead of showing this complicated way, let's simplify this. First thing, setting up and managing infrastructure. What do I mean by that, or what does it mean? It simply means that you might have 10 server, for example, or just a single one server. Now instead of manually logging into server and then installing whatever software you require to run your application, for example Nginx, for example MySQL, for example any other things that you can think of, I'm just giving you all this possibilities, any software you can think of, okay, that software may takes, I mean, that's simple thing. For one instance you'll be doing all that and it takes a lot of time. Now if you have say 100 instances, and for some reason it has to be real physical instance, you cannot have a flexibility of using a container. Okay, now not everyone have all the luxuries, right? Now you have the luxuries to use tools to make your life simpler, which is where using Python you can install software. You think of 1 instance, 10 instance, 1000 instance, 1000 instance, I don't care, we don't care. You can have that level of high fleet of instances, and whatever software you want can be installed, okay, in all this infrastructure. Okay, you can of course do one by one. If you have a minimum number of instances, you want to first deploy, then test. But for higher number of instances, where you're talking about the 1000 or such kind of thing, you don't have that flexibility. You have to do it in a large part, maybe say 100 instances per cycle, or maybe 200 or maybe 500. It depends based on the total number of fleets of instances you have. Now there you have all these tools: Ansible, Fabric, and SaltStack, and there of course be many such. These are the 3 leader, I would say. Now first of that, managing infrastructure and setting up. So you're basically setting up and installing software and setting up all the configuration via Python. Then provisioning resources. Now what you talk about the managing infrastructure, but like modifying say files, installing some things and all that, that you can call this mainly setting up managing infrastructure. Now then including provisioning. So provisioning in the sense, if you say, I'm talking about server that exists, what about you want to create a server first? Now in the server, I'm meaning in the cloud, you have this instances or compute or virtual machines, whatever you want to talk about, or however you want to call it. Virtual machines is the kind of a main term. So you want to create that first. Well, that means provisioning. So you can provision using Python as well. So of course you can install softwares and you can provision the instances or machine first to then you do the setting up and managing all these servers and all. Then managing configuration files. So configuration file could be your copying from your local machine to that particular servers or all these servers file system. You can copy that, and it's actually very easy. It happen of course over the SSH protocol, and there is other protocol also which can be used for this uploading and downloading and setting up the server file, adding configuration, updating the servers, restarting the servers. You talk about anything related to configuration management, you can do all that with the help of this Python. And this Python that you can see here, those all are actually kind of a library developed using Python. First one is Ansible. Now what is Ansible? And by the way, when I'm talking about all these tools, most cases I might have the course already in my channel, so you might want to look at later on. Okay, this is Ansible part. So what is Ansible? Now Ansible is an open source automation tool used for configuration management, application deployment, task automation, and it uses human readable YML files called playbooks to define desired playbooks to define desired configurations and automate process across multiple systems. Now these tools that I'm talking about, say Ansible for example, it has support for almost all the OS that you can think of, and it support all kind of host OS, be it that host that actually you want to use Ansible to install things, setting up all those instances or virtual machine, what you want to call. Ansible have already support for all that. And this OS, I mean any kind of OS, could be any flavor of OS or any distribution of OS. For example, Ubuntu, for example, CentOS, for example, Windows, for example, your MacBook. I mean, I'm talking about any tools that you can, any OS you can think of that's supported by Ansible. Of course, you have to do custom configuration for them based on their target OS and all, but that's part of your job. That's why you'll get hired to do Ansible scripting, right? Then there is Fabric. Now, what is Fabric? Fabric is kind of Ansible, I would say, because let me just go through the definition. You might understand what is Fabric. So Fabric is an open source Python library and command line tool that simplifies the automation and deployment of application and system. It allows you to execute command remotely over SSH and streamline tasks like application updates, server configuration, maintenance across multiple machines. And of course, Ansible do all that. Fabric also can do it. You have to see the performance, you have to see the use cases, you have to see whatever you're more comfortable with. Okay, that should be your choice. Now, next one is the Salt Stack. Now, what is the Salt Stack? Now, Salt Stack is an open source Python based automation and configuration management tool. It enables management and orchestration of say infrastructure at scale, and scale and by using remote execution and event driven approach to system administration. Now, what it means? It just simply means whatever you can do with Ansible and Fabric, you can do similar stuff with Ansible, Salt Stack. Now, way of implementing things, say for example, Ansible do that with playbook, Fabric do that with CLS tools, so you can execute the Fabric scripts. Salt Stack have its own configuration file that you have to execute. So all have several ways to define it, but you are ultimately achieving single goal, that is installing software, upgrading system, or say updating system, restarting the instances, installing say Nginx, Apache. I'm just giving some few examples, and you can do all that there. Okay, which is you have all this flexibility. Right. Then what you have, this is the first one, infrastructure automation using Python. Then we have the continuous integration and continuous deployment, that is CI/CD using Python. So what I'm meaning by that? So Python can be used in a CI/CD pipelines to automate build, test, and deployment process. Jenkins, GitLab CI, and Travis CI are some common CI/CD tools that support Python. Okay. Now, these tools are actually very well known. This Jenkins, you talk about GitLab CI, this Travis CI. If I talk about individual things and go deep, it might take many hours, right? So we'll just touch the base and see what are these libraries you have. Okay. So for example, this Jenkins. For Jenkins, there is two libraries which is famous. That is not libraries, so single library. There is Python. There are actually many libraries, but this Python Jenkins library, okay, that actually works better, and I have a tutorial on my channel also for that. Then this Jenkins API. So for example, you don't want to use an existing library, could be for any reason, specifically your security concern, then Jenkins have their own API documentation that you might want to follow. So that also is option there. You can just develop your own, or you may use one existing workable one. Okay. Then you have the GitLab CI. So GitLab CI also, you have the API. Now what I'm talking about, what this API does. So you can create the projects in this CI/CD pipeline via Python APIs, whatever they're offering. Then you can run the builds. You can stop the build. You can delete the builds, or maybe delete the project. Whatever you can do via the UI console or say via CLI, you can exactly do that, of course, or maybe more. So maybe you want to put some conditional logics. You want to put advanced business logic. So that luxuriness you will be having if you use any programming language, specifically Python, which have this native support for that. Then there is Travis CI, again same whatever technology. Jenkins have the support, GitLab CI has the support. So Travis CI also have the same support. You can create projects, you can run the builds and all that. Okay. Now note that Travis CI part is official documentation, does not provide a specific Python library, but Travis Py is an popular community maintained Python wrapper for this Travis CI API. So of course you have this option, which is not natively there, but you have this here. Okay. Now next is that managing monitoring and logging. Now monitoring and logging, I think one of the see what happened, at the beginning people pay less attention on this monitoring and logging part, but what happens after they keep running the application, after they see performance impact happening, some degradation happening. See, for single user or 10 user, if you're hitting their site, nobody cares. It will not even create a single, not that much load or any load at all. But now think about that. You have 10,000 or 1,000 active users hitting your site, reading application continuously. You will see the effectiveness. You see problem happening. Now to find out the problem, you need to use logging. By the logging and analyzing the logs, by checking the logs, by finding out the error messages, tracing the error messages. That's how you find out what are the bugs you have, and you have to fix this. So every system have bugs. Every system, like there is no one can demand that their system or their application or their whatever their project are doesn't have a bug. Nobody can guarantee, even whoever it is. Okay, I'm just not going to that depth. Whoever it is, they cannot guarantee that they don't have the bugs. Every application will have bugs. Minor bugs, severe bugs, medium level bugs that types can be having, but they will have bugs. Now to find the bugs, you need logs, and to need the logs, to have the logs, of course you must be storing logs somewhere. You must be getting the logs. You might be analyzing the logs, and that all you can do via the Python. So you can write the logs using Python script. You can read the logs using Python in a logical way or in an analytical way. You can do all that. Now, of course, let's go with the bookish one at least. So Python can be used to develop custom monitoring and logging solution for application and infrastructure. There are Python libraries like statd, logstash, Prometheus to aid this process. Okay. Now what are these libraries? Okay, so this library is statd, which is I actually like the more this logstash one and this Prometheus one. That of course statd also very good library. So now I am saying good library, but that should not be the thing. It should be you try to implement in your application, find out which is the most performing one, which is the better one, which is the most easier one, and so your team can learn faster. Okay, that should be the way. Of course, checking the cost of running any of this tool, which is the lowest and best performance. That's how you should use it. Okay. Now I found, of course, Logstash and Prometheus, like any of this tool, or maybe statd also very good one. So I give it the top 3. Okay, so you can go and say implement for your projects and find out what is the better one. This is up to you. Okay, so these are the same very famous one. Then we are done with this monitoring and logging. Then there's a testing. Okay, so any kind of application you have, you need to test, or you need test before you kind of release it to at least staging, I will say. Otherwise, your QA engines will start bugging. See, what is the quality of this code? Why are you even giving this to me, even if you don't have the basic quality check done, and you don't want to hear that? That's so painful, to be honest. So how can you avoid that? You can avoid that by at least having some kind of unit test in your your codes and all, and make sure that test you're doing should generate some kind of maybe XML, maybe CSV, I don't care. It should be producing some kind of files. So that files you can be shared with other people or maybe some to other applications which can feed there and generate some kind of UI data or some meaningful data that should be having at least. Now, of course, Python is excellent choice for writing tests for your application, and these are the popular unit test, PyTest, and nose. I personally use this unit test and PyTest, which is both are very fine, very easy to write. Yes, some application I found unit test to be better. Some application when I'm running writing the test cases, I find PyTest to be the better one. But either way, it's up to you, your application, and your affordability and understanding whatever tools you want to use. But these three are the top three. Okay, so you can use either one. Then you have this cloud management with Python. And of course, if you see, this is the official one, but of course, unofficially, there are a lot of tools to be available in the market. You can use anyone, but these are the at least most popular tool, I will say. Okay. Now, what are these? Let's first understand that Python SDKs are available for most say major cloud providers such as AWS, GCP, Azure, and it makes easier to interact and manage cloud users programmatically. Now, why I'm against of manually? I mean, when you're learning is okay and good, but think about scaling. When you have multiple applications, when you have many things to implement, deploy, and manage, it becomes so problematic if you do that via manually. Okay, you finally have to be doing all this via automation. And automation in the sense for cloud, they have the support of SDK, and we have to implement all this SDK in our. We will be developing different tools to make our this complicated task of managing cloud to into a simpler task. Okay. For example, I'm giving you want to create 10 buckets and you have to upload many files there, and maybe you want to run some processing. For example, you can do all that. For example, you're doing with AWS using Boto 3. It's so easy a task. Using manually, you have to manually upload 10 files. If you first create the 10 buckets, you have to manually create the upload the 10 buckets. So time consuming, so manual process, right? You can eliminate all that. Suppose you want to create instances, say 100 instances. Think about manually creating even 2 instances, 3 instances. How much time it takes and how much effort you have to push. You don't need all that if you use a tool like Boto 3. Similar way, every cloud, of course, as I say, every cloud service provider have their own tooling, which is why you have Boto 3, GCP, and this GCP development library kit we can use. Azure have their own toolkit, which is Azure SDK for Python. You can use that. Okay, so they're the 3 most popular one, you can say. Okay, so you should be using, if you're not already, you should be using this tools. See, ultimately what you're doing as a DevOps engineer, your job is to reduce the manual, like whatever deployment happening, whatever release happening, you want to down the time of this release. You want to make deployment faster, you want to make implementation faster, you want to make your product is releasing faster. And to achieve all these goals, you have to make sure, if it's an application running in the cloud, you have to make sure the cloud management is simpler, it's more robust, it's less time taking, it's more automated way. So you don't have to put manual efforts every time. You should be always doing that, right? So that's why for cloud management, I will say, if you're not already, you should be using these tools, respect to whatever cloud you're working on. Okay. Then we have this containerization and orchestration with Python. Now, Python can be used to develop a script and tools to manage containerized application. Docker and Kubernetes are the most popular platform for containerizing and orchestration, and both provide the Python SDKs, which is native support, by the way, right? So Docker and Python support native. You want to say communicate with different say, for example, Docker, you're running say 100 containers, okay? And for any reason, you might need to restart the containers. You might need to just delete the containers and start new containers. Think of any use case you have to do. Instead of doing manually, you can do that automatically via SDK using Python. And you have, in the document which we'll be sharing shortly after this video, you can do all that. Okay. Similarly, for Kubernetes, there is a client, there is libraries, you need to put, of course, whatever library I'm talking about, if the application that you're interacting with it require authorization, all these libraries should have, already have the means of this authorization and all. So I didn't touch that one. Maybe while I talk about the security part, I'll be talking, but okay, you can have all that. Kubernetes, what I'm talking about, it supports any kind of support you want to restart, any kind of service you want to create, deploy, manage, delete, anything you can do manually. You can do all that automatically via this clients or SDKs. Okay, so I want to touch because many even don't know there is a Python library for Docker or Kubernetes. I want to bring that attention of you guys if you're not already using it. By the way, there are many tools which behind the scenes actually using this Python SDKs, but you might be paying them for doing all that, which you can, if you learn the basic SDKs, you can implement by yourself, but you might be, or your company might be ended up paying them. So you can save that money if you know this SDKs and all that. Just learning is actually pretty easy. You just have to make a list of what you want and then search based on what you want with this kind of, this documentation UIs have the search feature. Just go ahead and you will have this code every day. Okay, so that is one that thing. Now the security compliance with Python. Now Python can be used to automate security and compliance check, as well as implement custom security measures for application and infrastructure. Libraries like Bandit are available to help with this task. Okay, now see, there could be many tools. I found Bandit to be used, by the way, which can make sure you check the codes for errors or maybe some security loopholes and all that. And as I say, there are many tools. For example, AWS, I'm talking about the open source one, but you might have the paid versions, say Code Guru, all these clouds. There are many plugins available these days. There are many free, by the way, but there are many paid also, right? So you can either go for the free version, which I will first suggest, and you might want to say if you're running on enterprise level where the free things are not maybe working to your expectation, then you can go for the paid one. But I will always suggest go with the free options. Then if you see free option not enough, then only go for the paid one. Okay, so that's for the security and compliance, where you check your codes for errors, loopholes, security things. You can use Bandit for that. Okay, and this is I think one of the important aspect of say DevOps as well. All these topics as I discussing, everything is actually specific to DevOps, but API development, which is I think one of the most common use case of Python, and of course Python is popular language and choice for developing APIs, which can be used to enable communication between different component diverse environment. Flask and Fast API are the two popular framework. Now, what happens, you as a DevOps engineer, sometimes you may need to create APIs, and requirement can keep coming, okay, based on the job you're applying or maybe you're working on. This might be one of the major requirement to have API development knowledge, so that you can create the UIs or maybe backend or maybe APIs interacting with other things and all that. So for automation places there, API development sometimes become inevitable, so you have to do it anyway. And if you want to develop the APIs, there are frameworks which already have everything you need to get started with API development, which make your task easier to develop APIs. Okay, and this Flask, Fast API, Django can actually make your life easier. And of course, everything have a learning curve. But these three particularly, I'm saying that if you know basic Python, like dictionaries, say JSON, work with JSON, all this looping and all that, then this basic stuff. So looping and let's say basic keywords and all that, pure basics, it will be very easy to start. Oh yeah, decorative functions plays a very good role, because ultimately whatever logic you have, you want to extend as an API. So if you know how the decorator works, and of course in documentation they will teach you anyway, but in case if you don't know, you must learn it. So using decorative function, you can actually enhance your features, enhance your logics and all that. Okay, and of course these three that I'm talking about support the decorator things. Okay, and this is the API development where you want to develop your backend. Maybe you want to work with many third-party APIs. Maybe you want to so example, I'm just saying, for example, you want a user to input what is or how many content you want to download, maybe you want to stop or maybe not delete, get the data and to do it. First you need at least some way to accept the parameter, right? And then you run your script to do it. So think about use cases where you might be for example, you might have UI could be getting from anywhere. Mainly you'll be developing the backend APIs, right? Which you get the input, and based on the input you have to do things. Could be deleting servers. Okay, for example, EC2 servers you want to delete in the AWS. For example, you want to create storage. For example, you want to create a S3 buckets, and see, use cases are endless. You can keep thinking on and be finding new useful use cases. So, but if you don't know how to develop the API, then it's a problem. So first, if you know how to develop API, you know how to take input from the users, and then how to execute different scripts or different using SDKs. In Python you develop the APIs. In that APIs you use different SDK that you talked about in the cloud, and then you do automations, right? So you can do all that. So what I'm talking about, what the tools I have discussed, everything kind of linked to each other. If you very closely observe, for example, starting from say infrastructure automation, that you create servers, you manage accounts and all that, configure system, then this CI/CD using automation. Everything I'm talking about, I'm saying that everything can automate. You can automate Jenkins to create project. You can automate Jenkins to start the build. You can automate Jenkins to maybe create custom view. You can automate Jenkins to stop or resume the build, or maybe generate the final output, and then artifact you can, of course, in Jenkins you can configure, but you may need a manual approval. That also you can do by Jenkins, and you can think of any use case on the build use case or CI/CD use cases you can achieve with the help of Python. You can automate using Python plus Jenkins, Python plus GitLab, Travis. You can think of anything, and that's quite possible. You may want to automate the monitoring and logging part. Just simply you want to keep the process the logs and all that. You can do that via Python. You want to test whatever code the programmer is writing, that need to be tested first. You need to write automation test cases, or unit test cases, that you can do by the Python. You may want to automate the cloud infrastructure, say resource provisioning or resource management or resource deletion, whatever is the use case. You can think of all that possible via different cloud SDKs. You want to automate the container use cases, like creating a Docker image, creating a Docker container, stopping a container, deleting an image, deleting a container. You can think of anything that you might think of. That's possible by Docker. Docker, of course, with plus is Python. Then you want to check for, say, security part in Python. Maybe you want to check the kind of any problem in the code or not, that you can do that via this Bandit. Of course, there are many tools available either way. Then API development Python, of course, you can develop custom APIs. That you can take input from the user. You can give the response to the users, like all this kind of thing via APIs with Python. Then of course custom tooling, and this is the final part, by the way. I want to make it very short session, so because this is a working day, that's the reason. Now custom tooling, what do I mean by this custom tooling, by the way? Now custom tooling, I mean that there are use cases, okay? Of course we talked about infrastructure, we talked about CI/CD, we talked about API development, we talked about security, we talked about container, but there are limitless use cases, okay? Could be scrapping, could be data processing, could be task scheduling, could be networking, could be reporting, right? Lot of use cases. I'm talking about any other use cases than the one that I'm talking about. I talked about already. So as a DevOps engineer, of course, you can use Python to create custom tools for specific need. That's why I told you that there are endless use cases, and you can automate, do anything via Python. And this is this common example. Say there is, for example, regular expression. You can use the RE library, which is the built-in Python model, by the way. Then task scheduling, you can use the Celery, which is a distributed task querying library. For networking, say for you want to make API requests, there are APIs, okay? You want to fetch or maybe request something, you can use the request library for that. For data processing, Pandas, which is the powerful data manipulation analysis library, you can use that one. For web scraping, so there are sites, you may want to get some content from a site, that you can do via this beautiful SOAP library or maybe Scrappy library. For reporting, there is Metaploit lib, which you can use for the reporting, or there is Jupyter Notebook, which is a web-based interactive computing environment for creating and documents for contain a live code, equation and visualization. I think many people who work in this machine learning and data science part specifically, they actually actively use this Jupyter notebook. So as I told you, use cases are unlimited. Okay, you can think of any use case. Of course, the infrastructure automation part, the CI/CD or container or anything can think of. You can achieve all that via Python. That is the reason, as I told you, Python is there for DevOps, and you already know what are the use cases, right? So yeah, that's this. Then let me know if you have any further query, and I'll be answering them. Let me quickly go to the last part. Yeah, any question you might have, I see that there are people waiting. So yeah, any question you might have, you can ask me. And yeah, I'm here for say another 15 minutes. So yeah, I see. Thank you, Amir. Hey Tejas, I'm doing good. Hope you're doing good too. Avinish, yeah, hi. Hi Pramod. So yeah, actually this session is supposed to be LinkedIn as well, but I don't know. Maybe my this software didn't able to run in LinkedIn, so I think LinkedIn one is actually become flop. But yeah, anyway, technical mismatch or problem happen is okay. I'll just delete that post. I think that might be misleading. Yeah, any question anyone have, do let me know. Sandip, thanks for starting the learning Django. So something Django is for DevOps. Is Chetan no? Starting starting the learning Django or Flask or Flask. I would say any you need to learn any API development library. So you can start the Flask because Django is somewhat there is a bit more learning curve to it. So Flask will be better one. Easy to start, easy to experiment, easy to gain the confidence, and then you can, of course, there are a lot of tools. You can start with Django or Fast API or maybe anything else. I will say start with the Flask. It's much easier to start. Yeah, that's it. Can you explain some? Let me see. It's obviously saying, can you explain some what is particular example and explain how Python works with DevOps tools? See, what I actually personally did was this Jenkins. What we have, developers didn't wanted to log into the Jenkins UI and then start the builds, get the reports. So what I did for that engineering team, I created Python using Py, that library, PyJenkins. I created the APIs which automatically start the build. Anyway, Jenkins you can do. They wanted to have their website. There are certain use cases they want to use from the website. They want to trigger the builds, and they don't want to log in the Jenkins UI, by the way. So using that API, we're able to automate the start the build and keep paging the status, maybe update some configurations from their website. That's one use case. Of course, then you guys maybe already know this Ansible. Ansible actually, by the way, written in Python. It have support for almost everything, I guess. So that's anyway, you know the use cases like installing softwares, updating configuration, restarting instances. Then of course there are certain packages that you can use with Ansible that you can directly work with different cloud providers. A lot of use cases. Now, yeah, if you have anything particular in mind, asking like say any particular use case that you want to think about, you can ask, no problem. Because there are so much use cases, you can think of anything, and that's can be possible in Python. Is it hard to learn Python? Actually, it's opposite. I find that learning Java, learning Go also, which is a bit harder side, but learning Python is actually a lot easier. And JavaScript, because maybe I was working from the very beginning of my career itself, JavaScript, that was easy anyway. But Python, even I'm coming from a background of PHP, then JavaScript, then Python. So I didn't found that complicated. I think it took me around 3 to 4 weeks to get the basics right. Then of course, I didn't count how many projects I work on Python. That give me intense confidence that I can keep working on in Python projects. So yeah, projects play a very good role in gaining the pure confidence in working with Python things. Okay. Then what are your thought about Azure DevOps? Now, see, Azure DevOps is actually pretty good. I mean, many companies are actively using this Azure DevOps as their prime point of CI/CD, storing code in Azure with Azure repos, or maybe just pure GitHub as a source, then doing all the builds and deployment, everything with the help of Azure DevOps. So all good. I mean, you can have all this. Okay. Now, yeah. Anything else you can go ahead and ask? Nobody's. I'm still here. See no question. So yeah, if no more question, I will just drop it there. Oh, there is one thing. Hi Sandip, thanks for taking the session, joining Python and DevOps. Yes, thank you. Hey Angelica, hi. Can you please explain something that we have covered? What are the thoughts? I think yeah, pretty much we have covered. So any question, feel free to ask. We have time and not much traffic because this is a working day for the people, so they didn't join. Otherwise, so many questions it's keep coming. So yeah, now I think yes, it's good question from Yatish. What is the basic stuff to start for DevOps automation using Python? I will say if you want to think of the pure DevOps perspective, this particular thing actually I will say you can, of course, you can first start with. It depends, but if you say what is the basics DevOps thing, the basic stuff, I will say start with Ansible. I will say better because in Ansible you can automate stuff like installing different software in different instances, then doing some configuration management there. So like, install Nginx, uninstall maybe the software, update the system resources using apt update and all that. That may be a good starting point as a DevOps engineer. Then you want to write your custom module. So you might have custom requirements, right? So that custom requirement you have to write in Python. So they can start writing that one. Now, then for example, I will say this particular. I mean, there are one other library I was talking, right? This one. Let's go back and check what is the one. This one fabric where you can for that use a Python library. You can use that one also to like automate stuff. I'll just start with the answer that's easier. Then you can explore all other tools like say fabric or SaltStack, because see every company might be using some other tool, right? So if you know at least about these basic tools, then you can say okay, I know this and that. They can ask the counter question, keep answering them. If you have experience, you can answer better, right? So that's the main point. Let's see. What is this next question? How, or say I think this one, let me make it a bit shorter. So I have attended few of the interviews and they ask Python API related question in the interview. How should I tackle? Of course, if it's a Python related interview that you're going to attend, I mean, see, when we apply for the this interviews, DevOps interviews, and there is a requirement, you have to know at least one backend programming language. That's a pure requirement you have, no matter which company you're applying for. Okay, now, and there is coming this requirement. If you're going, they will be, of course, they will ask you different use cases and all that, but they will start with something very basic, which is API development. That's why I told you this is a very core requirement. You need to have some knowledge. At least they will ask you what are the HTTP methods you can use. If you ask, this is a basic question, that's not even so complicated. So on that you have to say, okay, there is HTTP get, post, put. Okay, then they might be asking, okay, what is the different libraries you have or frameworks you have. You have to tell them, okay, there is say this Flask, there is Django. Then they will ask you what you know. Can you tell about that thing, how you can write and all that. You may just write a sample one. Then you have to start exploring. So you use at least one Python framework for API development, then only you can answer all that. Okay. Yeah, so if you want to tackle interview, of course you need to know about that particular subject, right? So you need to know API development, you need to know how to load JSON data, how to accept, say, JSON request, or say all that JSON request, how to process the request, how to send response. You know all that. Okay, then only you'll be able to handle all that. That is the Abhishek's question. I think I weren't few. Okay, that is there. Then yes, welcome. Then it's Bharat Ahire saying that, sir, can I start a career from Linux support engineer? See, the problem of current time, this AI tools, all this support job you see, computer support, say this, all this support, you can think of any kind of support, to be honest. But I think I will not suggest you to start from support, because that might be difficult to move from that. I mean, you don't have an option, that's fine. But if you have an option, don't just go for the support option. That's not the right at this moment. Of course, because this AI evolution, which is making this so hard, that would be a problem, by the way. Okay, I will say, why not you start from Linux engineer, Linux administrator. That is even better than the support engineer, I will say. Okay, or associate Linux engineer. There are a lot of options, right? So you can go for that one. So yeah, that was that. Let's see if I Mojo coming. Yes, whenever it's come, we'll see. My house, by the way, in very pure nature. So I don't know. Yes. So yeah, keep the questions coming. I see very good questions. Now, one of the say, what is the additional say important other use cases? You might want to say automate part is, I think more or most places it was the automations part. Okay, they will give you options like how you want to automate. At least say for de facto, I will say de facto, if you want to install softwares in different servers and all that, answer is the de facto. If they're saying infrastructure automation, then there is interest in the code. Of course, Terraform coming, but after Terraform done its job, then this answer will come, or the other tools come. Then there are certain tasks. Okay, like creating this. Servers and all that you need to, or maybe there is a lambda function that, and for that lambda function, of course, there is it can work on Python. You can write server functionality serverless way. There are a lot of things you can do. That's what I mean. So many use cases. Sometimes I also confuse what to say and what to not say. Yeah, it is one thing. But sir, while I go for the interview for Linux. So when I go for interview, they hire experienced candidates. That is the case. Everyone want experienced engineers, but nobody want to take fresher and make them experienced engineer. And so that's they want to save the training cost and they want to get started immediately. Okay, that is their goal. So that's it. But that doesn't mean that you will stop trying for the better job or better option. Even if there is they will be asking for experience, but yeah, if you can demonstrate them that you have the better skills, say some particularly this I mean, I'm not that much support of the certification, but if you're a fresher, by the way, then having some kind of Linux related certification might be actually better instead of having nothing, right? So that will be better one. Okay. So what should we trying for it, that achieve some Linux certification that is what is supported by Linux Foundation, by the way. Apply for all those certification, and that might be actually very useful for you. Okay, I think looks like no other questions. I wanted to make it a very short but very quick session. I want to talk about different DevOps use cases, starting from infrastructure automation to testing, API development, custom use cases, and all that. Specifically, this scrapping and all that. So yeah, if there is no more question, I will just end the session. Anyway, if anyone coming from LinkedIn looking at why there is no LinkedIn session, it didn't happen. This software issue. I updated my streaming software, which caused maybe some problem, which is why I'm not having today. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining session. If anyone have any further doubt, of course they can ask in the comment section, or maybe you want to expand it, you can directly ask on LinkedIn, or I think separate will be comments, because there I can just give the full answer as a reply, so anybody else also can see it. Okay, and yeah, this document actually I'm gonna share right away on LinkedIn, so that many people didn't saw the LinkedIn, I mean the video didn't able to feed in LinkedIn, right? So they can at least get the document, and of course I will post this YouTube link so they can hear the explanation that I given. Okay, thank you everyone. Of course, this week actually better this Git part 2 I supposed to release today, but I didn't release because of course I released this Packer course, which is to automate, by the way, this AMI part. So that's I did it. AWS AMI. Of course, we can automate, say, Docker and all that kind of stuff. Docker image part. Yeah. One question: as a fresher, should I take the solution architect exam? Yeah, it's from Hashmi. Yeah, you can do. I mean, that certification actually what happened, so every guy or say every person right now have there is certification, the associate one. And if you're just fresher, I think you, even if you have the professional, that might not get valued. But if you can, it's good thing, of course. The grinding process, the learning process you go through, that will be definitely helpful for different interviews. But yes, for now, start with the associate exam. Don't start with this pretty basic one, which is the foundation. I will not say these days. Previously, I was suggesting, by the way, but now I'm not suggesting, because the reason everyone have it, so nothing out of ordinary. So yeah, start with this associate architect associate one. It will be a good one. But if your goal to become more of this DevOps and more of this implementation part, I might suggest I will suggest you to start with this this one we have it there, system admin one. Okay, sysadmin, that one will be better for you. Okay, I see no other questions. If any questions, fine. I mean, it's already 6:53. I have say 7 minutes. I can answer, no problem. If no question, then I will just stop here. Okay, so no further questions. I'm just stopping the session here. Again, I'm just thank you for joining this. I know the LinkedIn one didn't work, but YouTube you have it anyway, right? So yeah, wait for the next week. This week only. At the end, there will be session. I mean, there will be recording or release for the Git part 2, and of course, I have to start the other stuff, that is advanced Python. Then there is advanced continuation and advanced CI/CD. So advanced basic stuff I've covered most. I'm actually getting bored of doing basic stuff, so I'll be starting the advanced part. Okay, so keep watching. If you want to see the basics already, I will make channel for the advanced part. You have to keep watching. Okay, bye bye. Have a nice day.